Hi guys, this is Marcoantonio and you're watching Are You Fired TV. As students, we can be very overwhelmed with stress due to projects and exams. It can be difficult to know where even to start and how to even cope with the stress. Luckily, I was able to speak with Christian Evans. She is the Global Director of Consumer Behavior Insight and Strategy at an advertising agency, and she took me along her journey with stress resilience and stress intelligence. Here's what she had to say.
Stress is something we don't really get a lot of coaching on how to deal with, even in this climate that we're in right now, where people talk about wellness and self-care. You're like, yeah, but what does that mean to me? And rewind the clock 10 years ago. I know I don't look a day over 18, but rewind the clock 10 years ago, and it was spoken about even less.
I then asked Kristen, how did she deal with stress from her past and current jobs, and when did she realize she needed to take control of her own stress? Here's what she had to say.
I started realizing that I was an insomniac. I started realizing that I had discomfort in my body on a regular, and that was normal. I am a chronic migraine sufferer, and I realized that I was having 15, 16, 20 days a month with the same migraine. And I was like, oh, I can't live like this. And I just had this realization moment that I needed to do an inventory of how I manage stress when I have all these balls in the air. And so that's what I was like, okay, well, what happens when I'm doing this, 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 and this? And I said, oh, I'm grumpy and I'm mean and I don't sleep and I snap on people. And I was like, this is probably not the best way to live. And I decided that I was just going to do things a little bit differently. And that first day, I was prompted to do a little bit of yoga at the end of the day because I realized that stress was literally living in my body. It didn't have any place to go. I wasn't releasing it. So I would do yoga for about 15, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes at the end of the night. And I'm, again, researcher by trade. So I started recognizing the trend line. Oh, I actually slept last night. Oh, I can actually get through my whole day and have a relatively decent amount of energy.
However, coping with stress on your own, it can still take effect around your workplace. And I asked her how did she communicate her stress with her upper management and if she ever did. She then gave some wonderful insight, and here's what she had to say.
I did have those conversations with my managers. The other thing I think is really important, managers and teammates, is around cultural awareness. What's going on around you with the other people? They were all stressed out too. So some of the stress that I was wearing was their stress because they were stressed out and they were passing it on to me, which happens a lot of time. People don't mean ill. It's just that they don't know how to cope with their stress. So their stress ends up being a lash out.
Lastly, I asked her if she had any last minute advice for individuals who are trying to cope with stress. She then gave some very impactful advice, and here's what she had to say.
A lot of people talk about stress management. A lot of people talk about coping with stress, but I'm a really big proponent and believer about one, getting intelligent about your stress, and then two, starting to build a stress resilience plan, recognizing that that may change depending on the cycle and stage of your life, but you have control over how you implement that plan, and you have something to always go back to ground yourself.
Again, I want to thank Kristen for the wonderful advice she gave of how to handle stress and just to work on yourself overall. This is Marco Antonio, and you're watching Are You Fired TV. See you next week.